Alright, so welcome to a ROM Manager tutorial where I go over some of the more complicated features that people might not know just from looking around the program or through some of the other guides via this community help document, which is very good. This can also answer some of your things as well as this here. This video will be primarily covering the new features, the newer features of ROM Manager, and some of the more complicated ones. But to start out, I'm just going to get a new ROM where we pay attention to this window here about the .config file and how you shouldn't move it. Always copy the config file, and if you copy your ROM file, i.e. make a backup, which is something you should do. You should be making backups very frequently. And that's about it. You should always keep your config file. I always do that. Here I have plenty of backups. I have even more in here. So yeah, you should always copy your config file. And something you should also generally do is whenever you go into a folder, properties in Windows, advanced, compressed contents, these are not very optimized files for a good reason. So you should always compress them. And I have my archives in a zip file, in a well-compressed zip file. That's just something you should be doing. So I'm preparing my ROM. Just checking to make sure that it's an 8 megabyte US, like the normal vanilla SM64 ROM that isn't already extended. ROM Manager extends the ROM itself, which is something it does. Now, this is slightly newer, the free space indicator, and you can kind of barely see all the other sliders here, which kind of goes off the pie chart, but that's fine. You start with 64 megabytes, which is always way too many. You're never going to hit 64 megabytes in your life. This right here has almost every area filled in, every level replaced, and it's only at 24 megabytes. I did try to optimize file size for this, which is like important, because I will be going over that. But yes, I'm blowing up my mic. I should fix that. Right. Okay. Now, I have my ROM here. Now, you can totally skip this, and you probably should, since it doesn't really matter that much. But what I like to do is open my HXD, my hex editor. I should probably move this a bit more, make sure it's frame. Is that in frame? It is in frame, okay. But what I'd like to do is open HXD, which you can totally skip this. Totally skip this. You probably should. It doesn't really matter. But at some point, there's a whole lot of nothing in your ROM. So, if you need to save on file size, you go until where you see the end of any sort of data semblance. Shift click this, go all the way to the bottom, shift click that, delete, operation change file size, yes. I save the ROM, I'll make a backup, 608 kilobytes, that's the magic number. ROM change detected, boom, 18 megabytes. Now you have a much smaller file, which when compressed is now only 8 megabytes on your disk if you use the Windows compression. It's just something I like to do. Now, whenever you make changes your ROM in like HXD or any hex editor tools, update checksum, something you have to do. You do that when ROM Manager does that automatically, which you should keep selected in the options menu. Yes, recalculate check on long save always. You should set that always. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's perfectly safe. Now when I open up my ROM, doesn't normally happen, but once it loads, everything's perfectly fine. Super Mario 64. Oh, oops, you're not supposed to see that. I have a bad plugin. Yeah, I'm just gonna change that. You didn't see that, you didn't see that. Actually, I guess I can explain this. I use Link's Glide N64 4.1, which for everything but vanilla SM64 should be the plugin you use for ROM hacks. It works with everything. It's in the community help documents. You can get it there with a pre-built emulator. That will work if you get any errors in your ROM. Not errors, if you get errors on opening emulator saying like the first time after you extend it saying like unhandled opcode at whatever, you need to set your emulator at 8 megabytes. The emulators in the custom Arch emulator in that document will tell you, will set it by default. I need to change this to just Javos, I guess. Alright, so something I need to mention upon going into this ROM. I don't want to make a new file. It's vanilla SM64, but this is not. It looks like vanilla SM64, but this is not vanilla SM64. There are a good many changes, and you should not use ROM Manager for any sorts of hacks that you plan to use with vanilla levels. That's just an important word to notice. Nor the fact that the text is filtered. I have bad settings because I don't use this dumb plugin. But something that you can tell to make sure that this is not a ROM you should use is that I can ledge grab the top of this door. This ROM has extended boundaries, which means that collision is slightly imprecise, but you can have big levels, and that's generally what people want. Kind of too big in my eyes, and it lags. Definitely lags more. Another reason why I shouldn't use vanilla levels, but yes, don't use only custom levels for ROM Manager. So that's just something you should know. Also, the tops and bottoms of the screens are, you can see them now, which is just an improvement ROM Manager does by default. So this is my more complicated features, so we can get into those. I'm just going to, okay, well, actually, I also need to go into the new UI, which is slightly newer. This is bigger, you can see more things. This just says custom levels, but again, custom levels only. But okay, so I'm going to add a level area, import, add level. Okay, I can also import a level if I want to do this from another ROM, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to make a new level. I'm going to overwrite Castle Grounds. I want to make it Snowy Mountains, I guess, since I want to. I always keep this off. No hard camera settings. No X selector for the main thing. I don't need that. But I do have object banks here. These are very important. For now, I'm just gonna give it sorted enemies. I can put a scuttlebug in there if I want to, which is nice because scuttlebugs are pretty cool. So no file loaded. It's fine. So I'm just going to pick any old file. I'm just gonna pick, while I'm here, I have Star Road Remains Overworld, so I'm just gonna import that. This diffuse position, you want to set that to 8192 on all axes because that gives you normal shading. And with all of these things here, I have plenty of materials here. These ones you aren't going to see, ignore those. But I have plenty of materials here, so what could I do with this? If I want to save on ROM size, which I do, you're not going to see this in game because actually I already have everything preset for this, since ROM Manager saves your settings for graphics and stuff next to the folder, Overworld 1 folder. As you can see next to the file I use, as all these things, which saves the settings that you can change in here. So I have this set as not visible, which is what this button does. It makes it not visible, which is good for if you want invisible collision, which is very useful for many purposes. And for this texture right here, I've upscaled it, so that's 64 by 64. And since textures can't normally be 64 by 64, they need to be, God, it's really dumb, but they need to be powers of 2, like each dimension needs to be a power of 2. They also need to be changed depending on what the format you use. Now the default format is RGBA 16, which is essentially the PNG of ROM hacks, which is why it's default. But your max size is 32 by 64, like this image, which you can barely see, this one. But just for the case of optimization, I have it set as I8. There are other options here. So I'll go over these. RGBA 32, it's RGBA 16, except you can have partial transparencies on textures, which is nice, but still a niche usage thing. And only if you like change the opacity slider in SketchUp or do something in Blender. But so I don't generally use this because it's just you can only get 32 by 32 with it as well. Now the funny eye textures here, these are very useful. More so with more complicated tools like decomp, but they are still useful here. Like here, that's not one. This is 64 by 64. I8, I4, I8, I4, I88 can all do 64 by 64, while normally you're limited to 32 by 32, 32 by 64, or 64 by 32. They're interchangeable on most occasions. But with the powers of I8, I can have that be bigger. Now the numbers next to these are your color amounts, like palettes and stuff. Well, not palettes, only for these two palettes. Sorry, but you need to have colors for textures, and these two give you the most colors. 16, 32, that's a lot of colors. You use those if you want a lot of colors. Now, most textures, they don't have many colors. Like, even this one, well, I mean, that one's RGBA 16, but the flowers, those are RGBA 16. This one is, but generally, you're going to want to use something like CI8, which is more efficient for that, like this one. There's one color there, so I have to use it. I could probably use CI4 for this. I could change this right now, and I probably should, which I will, I guess. But CI8 and CI4 paletted, which means they have more limited colors than RGBA 16, but they're slightly more efficient on the N64 side of things, less file size, blah blah blah. But generally, you can use CI8. Like most textures here are CI8. That's the texture I use for most of my things, generally. Unless if your texture has a lot of colors, like something like the flowers here, which isn't really that many colors, but like this is definitely more colors. You can pretty much safely use CI8 whenever. I8, all of these colors, these things, they're black and white only. I'm not sure if I ever said that these are black and white only. The A stands for alpha, which means that you can have transparencies of these. You can't on these, but you get more colors, more shades of black and white for I4 and I8, for more black and white shades for these. And these get you more black and white shades, but also alpha. Transparency. I8, you can have partial transparency, which is great on a 64 by 64 texture. It can look really good. if it's black and white, which can look good for like fogger effects or if you want to do something like that. IA16 has a bunch, too many even partial transparency layers. You can only use 32 by 32 with IA16. IA4, you have 3 bits of gray color, of black and white, and 1 of partial transparency, which is very little. And IA4, you have 4 bits of normal transparency. And now I should state, bits, bytes, we are making a ROM of binary data. As you saw earlier, we just have binary data. Like if I open Star Wars Retool and Hex Editor, you are working with this. This is your life. It revolves around this, but you have a UI to make it way easier. And this is an optimized ROM, and there's still swaths of empty space. That's why you need to compress them. And I'm kind of going all over the place, but there's a lot to cover. But yeah, you should generally just try and optimize them whenever you can. Like low color textures, CI8, high color textures, RGB16, not that bad. You can still use transparencies with CI4 and CI8, by the way. That's something you can do, and I do that somewhat often. Now, next option, display list. You have all these options. You are only ever going to use these 4 right here, 1 through 4. 1 is solid. ROM Manager usually sets that by default. When it's set to automatic, you can generally keep it on automatic. It's pretty safe, but if you can sometimes see through your textures and it's supposed to be solid, you just set it to solid. I just do it just because for the sake of security. Now, solid decal, something very different. This doesn't work on Java sometimes. It only works if you used the pre-setup, the custom ROM hack build of 1.6, I think, and I'm pretty sure it's fixed on 2.4, the one above the custom ROM hack build. There's 2 in the dock. The one on top is the 2.4 one, which I think works. But it'll let you have decals, which is your surfaces that are really close to each other. And when I go in the game, you'll be able to see that I will have surfaces that are really close to each other. Now, all these here, you're pretty much never going to use this, unless if you have translucency. Then you should use this. But translucent decal, alpha, I can explain all these. Translucent decal, it's a decal, something very, very close to the surface you're using, except it has transparency, any transparency at all. Solid decal, like my sand here. Solid decal, really close to another surface, is solid. It's a solid decal. I have it set like that. This, I have it set. I don't know why I've set as translucent. That should be alpha. Oops. Alright, well, I'm glad I'm fixing this. I should also fix this. Dang. Okay. Wow, okay, I haven't gotten into this in a while. I have to fix some of this stuff. Now, remember, like, generally, I use IA8 since there's very few instances where you have a black and white texture when you have with so little colors. I generally use IA8 and CI4 the most. That should not be I4. Oh god. Have I been doing this forever? Okay, well, that's what happens when you go into your old files. But, yes, CI8, CI8, CI8. Not CI8, 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 CI8. And for black, I8, I8, I8. That's not I8, that is some color to it, oops. I8, I8, I8. You don't have to do this at all. That's just if you want to have higher quality. If you want to have like 64 by 64 black and white textures, you do that. Complicated feature, I'm explaining it. I'll probably put timestamps in the description. Considering I'm going all over the place, there's going to be a lot of them, but you can also flip the image if you have to for whatever reason. The textures are upside down here just because this is from your cruddy old Star Road model, so they're normal in my model. You can change the UVs, but this, yeah, I have that flipped on the x-axis, which will work. I also have enabled double-sided faces, which means that no matter what side you look at this from, it'll always be visible. Front and back, you can see it because of back faces. Only the top sides of faces are visible. The white faces in SketchUp, or if you choose to call back faces in Blender, which you should be doing if you use Blender. And as you can see here, well, better with a texture like this, I have it set so that the axis of S and T are mirrored. Think of this like X and Y except on the texture. This texture in-game flips over here and down here and over here as well, which means it's a full complete shadow. It's something you can do if you want to have mirrored textures, which I like it, or for something like this, just to make sure it doesn't, like, no seams on it. But I'm just gonna save this since I'm done fiddling around with that. And collision editor. This is generally simpler. I can go over this much faster, but I have things that I don't want to be solid, non-solid. I want this to be solid since this is invisible, but I still want it to be solid. This is non-solid because it's a decal really close to a surface. Generally doesn't need collision, unless something like this. It's a hard surface. If it's listed as hard, it'll make a like a chunkier sound upon hitting with it. This grass here is just default. I didn't want it to have a different sound effect. Default. In terms of other types of collision, flowers, these are non-collidable. I have this as invisible cap meshes, which I'm not really going to use the invisible part of that. Still need to fix the texture, but yeah. I have this non-solid. This is non-solid because this. Oh god, I forgot to explain that. That the moving texture. I have it listed as a texture animation. It can animate. It can scroll in 4 directions, and that's what it does. These, I have all these because of Cheesepin's painting tutorial, which I will not be covering because paintings are awful. You should probably not use paintings and come up with a better idea for entering levels. It's a lot of text. These are for 2 paintings, but it's still awful. I hate it. But yeah, back to this. There's plenty of collision types here. Where I can scroll. Thank you. Plenty of collision types. Lots of them. You never need anything below 7B if you're using, unless if you're using paintings. You don't need any of those. So all of the important ones are up here. Even then, most of these are very niche usage, like something like black intangible surface. My favorite black intangible surface. Stuff like lava, which lava is collision, not a special box, which I can cover, I guess. Climbable ceiling, which only impacts if it's on the ceiling. Loading zone, which can be used for cool effects. Advanced feature, I guess I can cover that too. Or quicksand, everyone's favorite to use in difficult hacks. Default with noise, which is another, it's kind of noisy. It should be like noisy default, which it has a slightly like crunchier, like more staticky effect, I guess. You don't need to use all these, like tower with a wind cap trigger, sun carpets. Like that's for like the over one if you want to look up. There's stuff in the pinned. Oh god, I can't say pinned. I really just said that out loud. In the community help document and help. You can also enable fog here. Different topic. You can change fog if you want it. It can be any color. I don't want it, so I'm not going to enable it. Scaling. How big your model is. I have it set to 50 for this model, but you can generally set it whatever you want. Default to 500 since that's good for SketchUp users. But you can keep all these at yes. This is actually going to be gone in a future update, but these, keep them at yes. No real reason not to have them as yes. Center model, you should be centering your model in your workplace, which is something you should do. And yeah, I have everything in here to make a level. I'm going to import it. Wow. I have this area here. I have these little drop-down menus. I don't know why there's a drop-down menus. You kind of need to see it, but I have all these little buttons here. So here I have special boxes. The last tab, which I covered first, obviously, which I can add water, toxic maze, or mist. Again, with 8192 for edges, that's just the edges of the default SM64 map. Scale is how the texture size looks. And you can change whatever you want it. Lava water is still water, by the way. It just looks like lava. Don't question it. I won't. I'll just add that because I can. Height of 0. Oh, I don't want it to be height of 0. Height negative 2000, sure. Hopefully I don't spawn in water. So, I'll have that open for later. You can look at it now, I guess. Have fun. Okay, well, that definitely needs to be lower than 2000. Area settings. This you generally don't need to touch unless you're having a snowy, sandy, or I don't know what that means. Ignore that. I think that's probably cringe. Water levels. Don't know what that means, but generally normal stone or wood, and it's fine to keep. Environment effects, snow or blizzard, which is unused, but it has more harsh snow effects. Beta flower, probably never use it. I've tried to use it with different spites. It's not good. Lava, this will have the bubbles that you see in Lethal Lava Lamp pop out of, I think, y equals 0. There is hard-coded effects in this game. This game is not programmed well, and arguably the program too. As you can kind of see, this I'll cover later. There's also bubbly water, which if you have effects, if you place items called bubbles in your level, and you have that enabled, you'll have lots of bubbles. Arguably too many, but you'll have bubbles. Camera preset, don't use this, I'll go over why. Music, there's music I can choose here. I think music is already covered, so I don't want to cover that. Area background, level background means that the background I selected here, snowy mountains, will carry over to this area, or I can set it to any sort of color. But I'll just keep it a level background. Area start message, that's if you like entering Bob Battlefield the first time, it says, "Welcome to Bob Battlefield." Screw you. Camera frustrum, don't touch that. Events feature. Echo level, this is if you want your level to be really echoey or not. For example, I'll just set this to max. And area model, you do not have to delete your level in order to replace your objects. So you can just import a model here, which is the button you should be clicking. These are advanced. I shouldn't touch these. Texture animations. I have a texture animation here. Wow. I'm going to set that to speed 20 because it looks the nicest. Pow. And that's that menu. This you can change this if you want to. Again, most of these are advanced. Like, what the heck is in 0 by 19? Which I should also cover, I guess. This is hex format. This is hexadecimal 0 by or x. That denotes numbers in hexadecimal because this isn't actually number 19. This is that number is actually 25. I think if I did my math right. No, wait, no, because the 1 means 16. That'd be 22, 27. I think. But yeah, that's hex. You shouldn't type numbers in hex if you don't know what you're doing. That's only for cases like this, where this is always in hex. You can ignore that. You can safely type in decimal, unless you type in 0 by before that, in which case it'll get converted accordingly to the correct number. It will always get converted in the correct number. You can also, I forgot to mention that if you want to export your model for any reason, you can do that here. If you import another level, it can work from an adult ROM. You can export the level model, or just use another tool, which is in the community help document. Wow. But I'm going to ignore this for now. We're going over to this menu now. Alright, so Look at all these buttons. Wow. Intense. And why does it look so crappy? Well, ROM Manager does not have a very good, well, currently, and I don't know if it's going to get fixed anytime soon, it does not have a very good level monitor. See, everything's flashing, and this looks weird. But this all looks fine in game. Generally, you shouldn't use this as a reference for what looks things in game, or always, essentially, because things are invisible, and see-through, and weird, and the textures don't really look right. But yeah, that's just kind of how the program kind of works. So this, I'm just going to set my start point here. Now, whenever making a funny little start point, you gotta go to level and set selected object default start position. You only need to do that. I think it's safe in any other level, but you only need to do that for Castle Grounds since it has a hard-coded spawn point because this game is very good and fun and stuff. So I set it here to this level. I'm just going to keep that there as a reference. And I have it set to all X. Which 6 isn't there because, again, very well programmed video game. But everything needs to be all X if it's in the overworld for it to appear when you spawn in normally. Just keep that enabled for the overworld. And there's still all the other stuff here, but if I want to add a funny little Goomba trio. Wow, 3 Goombas. 3 entire Goombas. I don't see 3 Goombas here, but 3 Goombas are going to be spread out here if I hit it. But just kidding, there aren't going to be 3 Goombas. Clicking this drop down here, I can have it set to be nothing. Nothing is going to spawn. Or 4 normal sized Goombas. I'm going to set it way up in the sky here. That's too high. Set it way up in the sky here. And 4 Goombas are going to spawn on the ground. Which is nice. I could also rotate this, which, this is the only rotate thing you're ever going to need, the up and down arrow. That is the Y rotation, which rotates it like the arrow pointing here, which is kind of weird name. The X and Z rotation, don't touch those. Those are really weird and dumb, and I don't like using those. It just doesn't make sense. I could move this. Like, what even is happening? Nobody knows what's happening there. Just keep it 0. Oh, I should also mention that these behavior parameters, 3 and 4 are kind of glitchy, which is why they're not used very often. There is a fix for 4 in the tweaks menu. I can go over that later. But these are always maxed at 255, except for 3. 3, you can't use 255. You have to use 254 as your max, because it really sucks, and this game sucks. But I also have 3 Goombas here. Goombas work in any level, because they're Mario enemies. They work. Standard Mario enemies works in every level. I have enabled the object banks Scuttlebug. So I'm gonna put a little Scuttlebug here. Yes. I have to go through all these cruddy MOP2 things, which suck. And, like, whoa, more objects patch. I've seen those in other ROM hacks. You're not gonna see them in ROM Manager since more objects pack is broken and you shouldn't use it, ever. That's a spin drift. Oh, okay, Scuttlebug. As you can see, that's not really what a Scuttlebug looks like. It looks scary and evil. And I think those are bully horns. Yeah, this is not, it doesn't look right. It's just not gonna look right. These might be the pinchers, whatever. Like you can see that there, but sometimes you'll just see Bowser whenever you play something. It's really weird. Don't worry about it. That's a Scuttlebug, I promise. I'm just gonna keep it there. Also, all these buttons on top, I guess you don't really need to use these usually, but you can always change the application mode down here, not use this, where you can search it here. Also, all these other tabs, like something like remove all faces of a certain texture, and Death Floor. I need to cover that. Death Floor. Ignore the drop down. This is for advanced users, but if I wanted Mario to die below a certain Y level, I'd put this here. I'd set it to a value. But it needs to be 2,500 units below where you want it to be, essentially. Because, like, whenever you go over Death 4, the screen fades out and Mario doesn't land on the floor. The screen fades out before he touches a floor of any kind. So you need to have that be 2,500 units below where you want it to be, because so Mario has time to fade out. I'm not going to put a Death 4 since that'd be kind of messed up to have a Death 4 here. Actually, I guess I can have it out of bounds. Sure, it's there. But also important, tools, script dumps, this is advanced. Look at all these funny numbers. What are those? Whoa. Ignore that. Texture editor is important. Look at all these textures I can edit. Wow, that's a lot of textures. Here, in level textures, that's even more textures. Wow, look at all that. That's a monkey butt. That's supposed to be there? That is supposed to be there. I think I have Yuki checked. I do, okay. I can also edit the area model texture, which is not really recommended. Ignore why there's 3 of these. There should only be 2, but there's one that's special. I can go over that, I guess. Since, I don't know if I covered I did cover 2 side faces, okay. 2 side faces, but they will never have collision. You can only have collision on one side of the face. Important, if you want to have fences or stuff, you need to have 2 sides to it. Like, you need a model in 2 sides of it. And you can make that invisible so it's easier, but that's important to know. But something interesting here is that this is kind of backwards. You can see that I can see through this. That's just a cool little collision thing I did, just to make it easier on the game. But I think for now I can safely save my ROM and launch it, and I set it to launch because I went to options here, and external tools, emulator, complexities. I also set my hex editor there. Save, open, and guess what? Oh god, I hate Jabos. Sorry, goodbye. Goodbye, Jabo. Okay, so I messed up a bit there, but here is my ROM again. I'm just gonna pick. I'm not gonna pick that since I have not skipped the intro yet. I can cover that. But here, I spawn in. Wow, I spawned in. Camera's a bit messed up because the vanilla camera sucks. But here, 4 Goombas that look weird because of bad plugin, but there's a scuttlebug there. And 4 Goombas. And drop shadows that are here because I haven't placed a tree yet. Tree's coming soon, I promise. Maybe, no it isn't. I set the water too low. That's kind of unfortunate. But I have all this smooth geometry and stuff. Smooth because it wasn't smooth there. Smooth because I used Control plus click in SketchUp with the eraser. You have smooth shading, which is nice, as well as you can just right click in Blender. I think I don't know what's weird in Blender. I have some smooth geometry and stuff. I have my level here. I have walked into it. I have all the textures and stuff in the correct size and stuff. And if I wanted to, there is water, but also Death 4. And I spawned here, which is a warp thing. Covered another tutorial, not covering warps here, but they're in here. You can add them and stuff. You can also have instant warps and stuff. Blah 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 blah. Ignore that. We're not covering that. What I want here in this level, I want a custom object. I want to go. I want to get a little bit crazy and wild. So, a good place to start with custom objects is database. Import from database. There's a bunch of stuff here. Doody doody doo doo. Something simple like the Sky Guy. I went in the wrong order. Global Behavior Bank. This is pretty safe to enable whenever, but if you want custom stuff, custom behaviors and stuff, you hit yes here. Click it, and wow. A lot of these are unnamed. But I can now go to custom objects, import from database. I can import a shy guy if I wanted to. The sky guy, but it acts like a Zumba, a Goomba. Or I could also import something real interesting. I need to turn this on first. I'm going to turn on my local model bank, which I did by clicking on this object banks. I can manage your local objects, which is models. It should say models. This should say create new model, but I don't have anything here. But I can go to the Angry Sun from Star Road. I can import that. Model ID. If you don't know what I can put a model ID as, I put late 70s, early 80s for IDs. Apparently you can count down from 255, it's safe, but I haven't done that. In the community help document, there's a list of free IDs, but I just used late 70s, early 80s for my models. Now, I'm just going to keep this 55 since that's what it was here. I'm going to change this to my local object bank of Castle Grounds, which I have enabled, so I'm going to select that. And import. And now I have the Angry Sun from Star Road. That Core 7. And this is now here. Cool. This is also here. Wow. But if I want something different and unique, like if I want to replace my Goomba model with something crazy, I guess the model I have that I can replace easily is also the Angry Sun. Why not? No, I'm not gonna do that. That's confusing. I'm gonna put a box. This is the box. The name sucks, but this is the box. I'm also gonna set this to 8,192 too. And I'm gonna set the collision. Should have picked a different object and take this later. I'm gonna set the collision to none since Goombas do not collide like normal collision. So I'm gonna set them on solid. Crap. But I can convert that. And it starts out as 0 whenever I hit the create new object, import the model, 000, and set that to something late 70s, 76. And then call it, this is irrelevant for on the ROM side, I'm going to call it, yay! Because now we're figuring out how to use custom stuff, which is cool. And this, don't touch this. I still don't know what it does. Don't touch this ever. I don't like it. Don't touch it. It's dumb and I hate it. Don't touch the collision point in ROM destination. You don't need that. Ever. I'm just gonna fix that. But I have this replacing Model 76, which is a free thing. Model ID, but I don't want it to be a free model ID. I want it to replace all these. I can't replace the Goombas. I'm gonna replace the Scuttlebug with this. I'm gonna make the Scuttlebug ID 76. It's gonna look invisible here since don't worry about that. It's gonna look like this, a bunch of numbers and stuff. Weird, but I'm gonna save that. Because you should always save your ROM and make backups. I'm not gonna make a backup, but I promise that there's a backup. I made one. I promise. Just copying these and pasting in the same place, it works. I have the model here, and I've replaced the Scuttlebug with it. So I've also added the Angry Sun. I did not place the Angry Sun. We have that on. So, Angry Sun from Star Road. Wow, that texture actually works. Looks cool and giant and well pixelated since I have it set to SCI4, which meant it could be 64 by 64. But have a low color palette, as you can see here. I'm gonna place it right here. Wow, the sun. It's on the sky because it's angry. I'm gonna save that. Then close this point, all these windows. But there's also like a little model bank. You shouldn't really use this. Unless you really want something to be everywhere. Kind of unsafe, and I've heard issues of people having with it. But this can be global. You still need to enable it here. But, yeah, you can have them in that bank. But something I didn't actually cover is that I should actually show it that it works first. Actually, I'm not showing that yet. I'm gonna go into tweaks, which is a fun, cool thing. Ignore that. Top it. I have all these little thingies here. Wow, look at all that stuff. A lot of these are really important. The parallel Lakitu camera. I want this. Undo patch. I don't want an undo patch. Because this is important. This is really good. I like the parallel Lakitu. Everyone likes the parallel Lakitu camera. This is probably too early of a version, but I'm also going to skip the Mario screen and skip the opening. I don't know what the true opening thing here. I'm just using both of them. I also need the slope fix. Keep this on default. Slope fix is very good. Very important to have slope fix on, as well as other things, which is in a definite tweak document in the community help document, but I think is also going to be implemented ARM soon. This is a little thing. It says that it's console compatible and official, but it's not on all patches yet. That's something that I do not know how to do yet. I should probably figure that out, but I can save my ROM now and open it. Which I guess I can also show something about this fun fact about the Jabo plugin. This is that 1380? Who uses 1380? But I can go into advanced, adjust game aspect ratio to match yours. That's kind of weird, don't you think? So I'm gonna go and make it that resolution, which is 16 by 9 or something. It's not actually, because that's a really bad resolution, but look at that. I'm gonna start the game. Wow, 0 stars, no cutscene. The ROM's in widescreen now. Crazy. Never been done before. My scuttlebug is a box, though. It's a box. I just killed it, but it was a box. I have all these Goombas here. It looks weird because of the fact that Jabos isn't a good plugin. In which case, you can also do that in Glide End plugin, which should work on every other hack. But it didn't really work for some reason here, probably because of the Mario screen, maybe. Because the Mario screen sucks, and you should skip the Mario screen. Which is what I did. So it should probably work now, I guess. I'm gonna try it since it looks so much better. Oh my god. Oh my god, it didn't work. Okay. Currently in development plugin, but it works for lots of ROM hacks, even cool newer ones, but I'm still going to stick with this one, I guess. You can't really fix things like the white screen, like the menu screen or the pause screen easily, but there is a tweak for the pause screen, but it changes text boxes too, which you don't really want. But yeah, Dropos does not like decals. It's a very bad plugin. You can see it flashing sometimes, but I still have my Goombas here. My 4 Goombas, I changed the behavior parameter, and my box, I changed the model of. That doesn't have collision, so they set it to not have collision. It's off center. But wow, there's also an angry sun here. Sun that is angry. It's chasing Mario, kinda. But it also burns. Which I should use the fixed smoke texture, because that's a broken texture. Smoke. Wow. But yeah, my levels here still have all my objects fun. Ignore that translucent decals of visible on both sides, it shouldn't be. But I should also go over here, look at this, to see that the scrolling texture is indeed working. It's a nice scrolling texture, and the fact that this that I showed earlier was originally one-sided, but now it isn't one-sided. is indeed two-sided visually, but I can jump into this where you get snapped at the top since it's only one-sided in terms of collision. It's kind of crazy and stuff. All the other stuff here works. These were decals, some of these were 64 by 64 textures. Like this thing in the bottom looks normal, kind of blurry, but it was as the way I said it. Wow, Japanese looks really bad on my hack. Did I really not fix that? Use a smooth shading? Okay, well, we can not cover that. But yeah, it looks nice, and all that stuff is working fine. Now, one thing that widescreen does, which you can fix with something I should make a tweak soon, that sometimes things at a distance don't render outside the visible camera. They don't always, but sometimes they don't render out of the camera properly. Like these Goombas, which I can also control with a D-pad camera. It's the parallel Lakitu camera. That's really cool and really nice. Oh, they're just gone entirely. It's kind of messed up. And they might disappear when they're too far with the camera. Actually, it has a Goomba trio or whatever. It doesn't do that. Stupid. Okay, well. But yeah, this is a level that you made in ROM hack that technically has extended boundaries, so I can go out here, which I couldn't if this was unextended. Say hi to this water. The water that's snapping me to the top of it whenever I enter it from the side because I did not enable that tweak, because there's lots of cool tweaks in it. You should look at that menu. And there's also the snowy mountains, as I said earlier, so everything's working fine. It looks nice, it plays the way I wanted it to, everything's good. But if I want to go more into depth on these custom objects, I'm gonna make a new one here. I'm gonna go crazy. Make a new object crazy. And what I'm gonna do here is so I want to select my model. I want to select the box, I guess. Here. I'm gonna select the box. I'm getting rid of the box. Normal box. I'm gonna go into my global model bank and add the same box with fog. Except it's not the same box. It's a different box since it's in a different place in the ROM. It's completely different according to the game. I can show that's completely different by making it black and white. Pow. Ignore me fixing this for later. Alright, so I'm gonna set this to something like 77 and name this box different box. And without touching a collision pointer. I don't want to touch that, it's bad. Eek. And I'm gonna select it from my global bank here. Wow, global bank, different box, selecting that, keeping this collision pointer thing on, since this object is going to have collision. I'm gonna go here in my global behavior bank. And you see the sun from earlier is here. I'm gonna create a new behavior. It's just going to be a solid object called box. With the B, with the P. And I'm gonna keep this collision pointer enabled. See, wow, look at this stuff. What does it mean? Well, you're not gonna need to know what half this stuff means, but the 2A here means collision. 2A means collision, and it's going to set to 0. So these 4 bytes are set to 0. And the OC means it calls ASM codes. What does that mean? What is ASM? Well, just know that it's calling this, because this is related to object collision, I'm pretty sure. It's just calling custom code, which is not required to be in custom ASM functions here, but this is just a way to do that in the UI. If you add something here, it'll make a new OC command here, and it'll do that. But I don't need to say this, but I guess well, there's a box here. I'm keeping that box there, and I'm going to go to select from behavior bank the books. I'm creating it here, and it's crazy, and it has collision. It works. Now that I have it selected here, I can go back into the behavior bank. It doesn't have collision. Come on. I need to save it first. Yeah, I should save. Crazy! It has collision now. Wow. These two numbers are different because one's decimal and one's in hex, but it has collision. That's crazy. Now, if I go to my level editor, I can go for the box. Anyway, I called it crazy. Crazy! And there's a box there, I promise. I can place this here next to my scuttlebug that looks like a box for some reason. I can save that. I can open my ROM. That's still widescreen, and that's cool, and I did that without any code. Except there is a code that you can use to make the widescreen better, which I have not made a tweak yet, which I should, but I can do that later. But I have my cool camera, and my box here. Oops. I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? Custom object. I didn't enable the global bank. You gotta do that. It will not like that if you don't enable that, and if you have models in that bank. Which I should also cover that the priority for model IDs is local model IDs have priority over the global model, and a global model has priority over the vanilla model IDs, which is why I was able to replace the scuttlebug with the box here, because it has priority over it. But I'm going to go here. Look at that! Invisible, not invisible box. It's black and white. So I set it to be the black and white color texture. And it has the shading, and it's all coming together, and I can jump on it and stuff. And climb onto it, and it works nice. And I can go far away from it. Show that it disappears with render distance. And it's still not disappearing from far away because the FOV code for rendering things from a distance, or not rendering them, is very messed up, but you can fix that, and I should. But look at that. It's all coming together. I have my box here. It's custom. I placed it in my model editor. I can stand on it. I can kill it. I can't kill it. Look at that. The smoke is fixed. And it's cool and stuff. And I have the slope fixed on, which means that this collision that's under each other that did for optimization, even if means I can walk on it and it works nice. It's not weird and bad. Look on this, everything's smooth and works nice. Wow. Everything's all cool and everything's happy, and we made a custom object. We did a cool. But something to know about replacing objects and models of objects. That while I was able to do it with the scuttlebug that is dead now, it might not work for everything. Usually stuff with collision, because like don't replace anything that has that 2A pointer or is collision that you can like jump on like this, because it will not work with custom models unless you make a new behavior with it, because every model that you make needs to have different collision. Like if I want to like if I used the same box model as I did for the scuttlebug, it would not have worked since that model did not have collision, but it would also have been a different place in the ROM, which would have caused the ROM to break, because you can't have two models use the same, two models using different two different models that use the same collision pointer, so you need to make a new custom object with a new custom behavior every time you want to have a custom object. But I could also But now with my abilities to import custom objects and models and stuff, this scuttlebug, this is now a pink bomb that generates message 80. That's the behavior parameter. I made it set at 80. It says message ID there. I could open my ROM. And look at that. I hear Goomba stepping around. I mean, the bomb buddy. I can talk to it. Spin around. Hee hee hee. That's apparently the monkey ID. It all goes back to the monkey I mentioned before. And that's the thing. I did it. I replaced the models, and it's really simple and easy because you just gotta connect all the dots, and you can do it. And ROM Manager makes it really easy. And it does a lot of stuff automatically, and everything's there and cool. Still looks bad because of the bad plugin, but I promise it won't always look bad. And as you can see, now it's loading for some reason, but it looks weird because it's black and white texture, because it looks bad because of the thing that looks bad, and I shouldn't move the camera that fast. But yeah, I can also, like, whoa, I can zoom in. That's crazy, bro. Oh my god. I can also, like, look at the fact that back faces, that the geometry, I can see through the bottom of it, but I can also do stuff like draw an outline, or that, and draw back faces, which look really weird, but, and draw nothing. None of that, or whatever. I can also look at the collision to see that the fact that I didn't show this, but what do I have set as invisible? Oh yeah, look, the flowers on the ground and the shadows, they aren't there because they don't have collision. And something that has collision but isn't visible is the I should change the camera mode to fly so I can actually. Wow, these were invisible. You didn't see these earlier because these are for the painting. That isn't there. But they're invisible. Crazy. I don't see them. Everything is working, and it's crazy. Take a screenshot or full screen. I shouldn't have done that because that's probably gonna mess up the recording. But yeah, I can do that. I'll save and all works, and now I can use custom behaviors and custom objects. And if I want to use even crazier custom behaviors, I can open something like like the flower cup, which have a lot of ROMs. This is the most recent version, I promise. Wow, the flower cup in Quad 64. I could also look at the vanilla game with this to see how it does its cool things and does other cool stuff. I can go to Core 6, which has, I don't think it's custom, actually that is custom. Wow, undefined combo. I can go into the script dumps, objects, find whatever that is. How? Go to the behavior script, see all this information. The fact that the OC command is actually calling ASM just as the script foretold, and the fact that there was uniform scaling, I guess, and that this and that this none of these objects have collision. Wow, look at this custom object here. It has collision, and it's set to go there at that address. It has collision. I could copy stuff from this or other games and with credit for a certificate of credit, and get rid of all this stuff. and I could copy that into ROM Manager, except I actually can't copy that into ROM Manager. I need to post this in a plain text, like, Notepad document in order for it to appear properly in ROM Manager's window, because ROM Manager is weird, and copy pasting doesn't always work. I could go into the script for my box and do that. Who knows why I can do that, but I can. But yeah, it has collision and I can do that, and it's crazy and weird. And these rotate in the game, I promise. And it's all weird and all works, and I can have custom stuff and make a cool ROM hack, and I could make it as cool as the game that I'm making. Not as cool as this, because this tutorial file actually doesn't keep that. But I can go into here and have all these things. Wow, with all that cruddy stuff. I can go into course 1, see that there's rocks in the moving platform that you saw earlier in the custom object thing, the database. Wow. It's here. And there's also the technical object patch, which can do things like these things. And it's cool, and you can import that. And you just need to place that in your object without a model, since it doesn't have one, it doesn't need one. But I can go into my game and okay, well, I can definitely go into this one. Ignore that. That's cruddy Java again. Go into the game and open it, and see that now it actually looks pretty and not awful. And the decals are working. But look, I can go into iToad. Wow, look at all that stuff. You haven't seen anything yet. Stuff like this palm tree that has fog. If I go far away, and the pound of the log has fog. That's not interesting, but... And this Polish chain chomp that you can also get in the database. It doesn't have a pole. And, this is a normal surface. You can't hear it because I have audio turned off. But I promise that this one makes a chunkier noise if you land on it than this one does. But look, moving platform. Look, moving platforms. Platforms that move. They are moving. And they had fog, as you could see. And stuff like that. And I have custom objects and stuff. And I could do that to make a cool game like Star Road with all of its custom objects, because I am making Star Road. But I shouldn't use Star Road's custom objects like I almost did with Flower Cup, because Star Road's objects are crud. You should use this game once it releases. I promise it's going to release, and I can ledge grab this, do a bunch of kicks and stuff, and jump off of it properly, since I enabled the elevator fix tweak, which fixes the elevator. Like this elevates, and I can jump on it and not break. And I can also have that guy who goes faster, because I use that behavior, which is also in the database. Since I put in the database, he falls faster. And I'm gonna beat him, because he's on my front. But also, I shouldn't make a custom breakable box, because breakable boxes are dumb. This would have crashed a lesser ROM, but it doesn't crash here, because there's a bunch of dumb jank that I have to do in order to make it work properly. But I promise it works once you have it set up correctly. And because it would also, because this, which does not look like a breakable box, would have looked like a breakable box in the game because this game is dumb and poorly programmed. It would just look like a box, but now it doesn't look like a box, and it uses code that makes it so that I pound on it properly. Ow. Which is also in the document, the thing that I fixed by someone 2639 to fix the collision of custom breakable objects, and yeah, and I have all of it, and it works, and I made it all in ROM Manager, and yeah, you can do cool things with ROM Manager, like swim in that water, and the other things that I don't want to forget. You can also access the texture editor here, but it has less stuff in it. I can you saw earlier that behavior 80 did the thing. That shouldn't sound like a monkey. I did change that, but I can also change the sound effect of things like that sign that Tyler saw me go past earlier when I walked into the first level, or how I made the ID 80 and it sounded like a monkey. I can change it so it doesn't sound like a monkey. It can sound like a sign. And that also shouldn't be 4 lines. I can save that and it works and stuff. And I can and I can also go into the tweaks menu and add a bunch of other cool stuff, like centering the star numbers on the star select screen, or any of these other cool things. Some of them are cool, some of them have niche usage. But I also have music from Star Road here that's of a lesser size since I converted it in Sequence 64 to a MIDI and then back into a .m64 file with setting it on the original import setting, and so it now is all small and stuff, which is also why my ROM is of a lower file size. Wow, it's that file size. You already saw that earlier. But I can do that now, and this opens document that you should look at, and it's really cool. Has this video and other stuff on it. And the custom objects, wow, custom objects, I have a lot of them. I have ones that make me sad even. And this one doesn't use collision, so I have that turned off. Which I don't think you need to do, but I did it anyway. But I kept this on, and I kept the collision point. That should not have collision. Shoot. This window that doesn't corrupt the ROM, it has collision. I can touch it. I put that in the database and it has collision. That's awful. I'm terrible. I'm sorry I did that. I guess I can just disable that. Save it. Hopefully it doesn't crash my ROM later. I can also disable that here if I change my mind on custom objects, but you shouldn't, but that's kind of maybe dangerous because you should make backups of your ROM like you have here. And, I still have all this UI stuff. I have this level with multiple areas, and they all have different things with... Why did that disappear? Why is it not here? Oh, right, because only areas 1 through 3 can have echoes. It's really dumb. These should have an echo. And, this one has music too. They should all have the same music. And, in this level, I have local object banks. I have the Choboli. I have all that stuff. And I could set it to snow. It's snowing in this level. Wow, it's ice. And it's snowing there. And I'm saving my ROM again. I'm making a backup. Yeah. I think that's all I wanted to cover. These other buttons are cool too. Star position editor. This doesn't have anything in it, but if you want to change location where any of these bosses drop their stars, you can change that and save it to your ROM, which is where like Koopa the Quick will drop the star. Because I have Koopa the Quick in my ROM. I can also change coin properties. Like I have 99 coins, actually 100 coins start because it's one less coin to grab, and it still sounds like a nice number. I can also change the coins for red coin stars or for Bowser stars, or that it's enabled or the coins HUD is on the hub. And I could also do the trajectory editor, which is how I have the Koopa the Quick do the thing and go to places. And the HUD options, which will soon be a different UI, but I have the coins and stuff slightly raised because the removal of the top and bottom black bars that I mentioned earlier, and you can do lots of things with the thing, and it's easy. Even if this video is really long, I covered a lot of things, but the things are there and they can do things like all these stuff. I could count. I could have a poundable log and have a drumstick, or this thing that the technical object patch object, which in my Overworld 1 I use. Here, I use it here to get rid of this box. When you have 10 stars, this isn't mirrored here, but it looks correct in game, as you saw earlier. Like this is here, it spawns this whenever there's 10 stars. And I had to do that since ROM Manager broke my star doors for some reason. But it's all cool and stuff. And I have all these other objects and stuff. Like this. This is a normal vanilla bubbly tree. As you can see, it's a triangle, like the normal tree in vanilla. It's mirrored, like the mirroring I mentioned earlier. It doesn't mirror in here, but it's mirrored in game. But in my course 1, I have trees that look like this. Wow, there's a slight thing in the middle that isn't in game. It's also square because I added fog to it. It fogs up it's in game like this, which looks weirdly big in the level editor. Why is it floating? I guess it's floating, don't question it. Like this tree and this shadow that looks good in game. And this that's visible here because the textures, and it all comes together and all connects the dots. And it's easy once you figure it all out, and you can learn by doing, which is important because by doing is how you do a lot of the stuff. And you can, and I messed up once in the video, I didn't set the thing properly, which is important, and messing up is important because you can learn from it and do better things. And keep trying, because you can have a cool ROM like mine, which with like all these things, the more the merrier, right? That's always been true. And that's it, and goodbye. Look at this sad Poochie image.